If you would like to get your song reviewed, dear listener, there's the filthy capitalist option. As Sori says, $125 gets you straight to the head of the line. You don't have to be a part of the alliance. You don't have to be part of the group.
Wait a minute.
And the biggest thing is you don't have to wait. You hop, skip, and jump right in front of everybody. $125 gets you there. You do that 3 times, and you get mashed down to the $75 rate for perpetuity.
Yes!
Also, there is a band review option. So if you've got a band and you're trying to get your band some exposure, hit me up at vinsori@gmail.com, and I'll show you the details about how to pull that off.
You can also jump on Patreon, and there is a option on the tiers to be able to get your band reviewed. Obviously, we can't lie to you, so we can't guarantee a positive review. Get what you get.
It's just rubbish.
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 That's British for garbage.
My favorite is the community option. $1 at the gate gets you in at Patreon. You get to join an alliance. The alliance joins their points together, and that helps determine what songs that we do.
The alliances hang out on Discord.
Message me on Patreon to get the link.
And they do all kinds of other cool things. They do Minecraft, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. It's really a community within the community. Anybody can go in the village, facebook.com/Vin and Sori. There's 160,000+ people on the channel. What's cool about the Discord is that it offers a real opportunity for community connection, friendship, that type of thing.
And it's on Discord, so if you're not a Facebook person, it's for you.
You start off at $1.
Right.
Plus you get exclusives. Sori and I are working on a song. So the first 15 seconds of that was on Patreon. Also, at $15 tier and above, when we actually debut the video, they're going to be there live with us. There you are, dear listener.
Buy our merch.
Buy our merch indeed. A child shall lead them.
To buy our merch.
Contrable, my overly simplistic answer to that question was answered by the big homie Emily JL. I think in a really, really simplistic sense, that's the answer to that question. Okay. So,
right.
numero dos. Here we go. We've got a
Sour.
DJ in the house by the name of DJ7. You can see it right there.
He's bringing us on another musical journey that started out with sorrow.
Correct.
Stone Sour, Do Me a Favor is up next. This song is part of the concept double album House of Gold and Bones.
Currently, my boy is in an undisclosed super secret location, bitches. I only roll with the best. I only roll with the elite. Nothing wrong with you regular people, but you know. All right, go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. Go ahead.
The overall concept of the albums are a mortality play about someone who is standing at a crossroad in life and trying to figure out what to do next. This song in particular is about the internal struggle. When you know that you need to figure out if you have the capacity to make the changes for the better, or if you really are the monster you feel like on the inside. Good theme. Let's do this.
This should be interesting.
Stone Sour, Do Me a Favor. I'm guessing he wanted the official watched, so I am going to play the official on the side over here, and Vinny is going to put a lyric video over there. Okay, ready?
Birthday? Is it your birthday?
Everything, man. A scab on the lips of the Lord of my when you're burning alive. Do me a favor, your behavior is just a reason why there is no savior. When you're wasted, let's face it, there's a side of you that knows you're a failure, lives for the danger, feels like an enemy but looks like a stranger.
Corey Taylor from the band Stone
the
Sour.
official video is not done over here, and I want to know what happens in this zombie apocalypse against the pastor.
Now, is he both the pastor and the...
Well, he's a bad guy.
He's a bad guy.
He's definitely bad.
He's like beating himself up there.
He's beating up these poor people that made it to the church doors to get away from the zombies, and he's...
Oh, boy.
I don't believe he's a nice man.
About to get wrapped up in this bitch.
Yikes. Okay. Wow, literally there's still like quite a bit left of that video.
Yeah. I think you're okay.
I liked it. It was catchy, yeah.
That's a catchy. I was surprised, like, you know, because I'm still used to Slipknot chorus, like, you know, like, this wasn't that. This was like, it was a little poppy almost, a little bit more accessible, I think, like, especially around the chorus. What'd you think he was talking about?
Well, I mean, we kind of got tipped off at the beginning when we read the intro. You know, are you really as dark as you think that you are, or is there a way for you to make your way out of it? He says, I am an anti-everything man, a scab on the lips of the Lord. And my cost, you know, I used to think when people would say, I can't go to church because if I do, the roof is going to fall in on me, or God's going to zap me, or whatever. I thought that people were exaggerating. I didn't realize that people actually feel that way sometimes, that, like, God is that much against them that if they even tried to, like, obviously, if somebody's going to church, they're like, all right, let me try to turn this around.
A scab on the lips of the Lord. That's a brilliant...
What did you get out of it?
That's a brilliant... I mean, a scab on the lips of the Lord? Like, that's... Even God himself, you know... It pains him to even talk about you. Basically. That's pretty crazy. That's a pretty crazy lyric. My caustic dismissal is all I need to get you to fall on your sword. It's easy to live fast. It's harder to live. I woke up today with a gun. Ignoring your history is killing your past. You run forever if death never lasts. That there's a lot to unpack in those lyrics, my guy. You might run forever if death never lasts. That's a pretty interesting way of talking about life after death, because most of the time we're talking
horrible way of thinking. thinking
most of
about
the time we're talking about everlasting life.
Yeah.
But what he's saying is, you better hope that death lasts, because if not, you're going to be running forever.
Wow.
That's a very, very self-aware line. Like, I get so many people, like, and there's a lot, if you're a Christian or a religious person, there are a lot of vulnerabilities, philosophically speaking, if you haven't taught them through. So one of those vulnerabilities would be...
something like holes that grosses me out, so
Oh.
I covered it.
One of those vulnerabilities is you're just making up this story because you're afraid of death.
Mm-hmm.
But what a lot of people on the other side don't consider is, what if you're purposely disbelieving the story because you're afraid of life after death? That's in play just as much as the other philosophical vulnerabilities in play. How do you know that you're just not disbelieving because you want to believe that when your TV's off, it's off? Because there's lots of people that would rather this life be all that there is. So I just thought that line was crazy. Ignoring your history is killing your past. You might run forever if death never lasts. I was listening to, I think it was Castrup, and so we were thinking about, like, we don't know the origin of consciousness. We don't know where origin... So somebody was asking, it was actually KRS-One. He said, where are you when... So he said, think of the word rock star. Mm-hmm. So everybody thought about the word rock star. And he's like, say rock star to yourself, like in your head. Don't say it out loud, but say it in your head. He goes, okay, now imagine what a rock star is and what a rock star does, right? So he goes, you heard rock star when you said it in your head, but not with your ears. You saw a rock star in your mind, but not with your eyes. Mm-hmm. So he said, so where were you when you were saying that in your head and visualizing it in your head?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Were you in your head? What side of your head? Like, that was a very, he said, wherever you are, that's where you are. And he was arguing that that's the fifth dimension. So there's 4 dimensions, but and then time would be dimension 4, right? And he's saying that wherever you are, it's kind of like when you're playing a video game, right? Where are you? Mm-hmm. Well, I'm in my room. I'm not in the game. Mm-hmm. I'm playing the game from my room. And what he's saying is, yeah, but where are you when you're in your room? But when you've got an entire life and world, and there's eyes and ears and all of that happening on a metaphysical level, where are you then? Because you're not in your body,
right?
You're operating your body in the same way that you're operating a video. It was very very interesting. So it's like, what if ignoring your history is killing your past? You might run forever if death never lasts. You die and then you turn off the headset and then it's like, boom, now you're in actual reality. This is where you've been the entire time. And what you did in the game is going to dictate how you experience the real world now when the real life begins. Go ahead.
No, it just makes me think of on what is that? The Matrix. Remember when they pull the thing out and he comes, he wakes up from inside that Babylon or wherever he is. He wakes up inside of there after being in those pods.
Right.
This is where you've been the whole time while you've been running around in your head.
It's interesting with Corey. Corey seems to be always wrestling with how he affects people. I've listened. We've done a lot of songs, and a lot of it is almost a self-critical or an internal analysis of how he affects people, particularly verbally. I noticed that a lot with Corey. Is he seems to be very aware that he talks about a caustic dismissal, he seems to be very aware that he almost has this destructo mechanism with his relationships, where he's gonna do something and say something that's gonna screw everything up to the point where even God is tired of him. It looks like. Do me a favor, your behavior is just a reason why there is no savior. When you're wasted, let's face it, there's a side of you that knows you're a failure. lives for the danger, feels like an enemy but looks like a stranger. Go ahead.
Sometimes I think that people are tired of themselves. They're tired of their mistakes, or they're tired of their same, you know, like you want to make changes, but then you're like, okay, I'm going to change on this. And then the change doesn't happen. And, but then I think because he specifically brings up, he says, when you're wasted, let's face it, there's a side of you that knows that you're a failure. And you'll see it depicted in shows or whatever, like the drunk person is crying. And, you know, I think that there's something about like, you know, whether it be, you know, alcohol or whatever it is that these people are on, but it kind of makes it so that way you start to kind of face things like maybe you don't have to hide behind your insecurities about whatever problems or whatever issues that you have, and so you just get like base level real with yourself, and then he's realizing that he's a failure from that standpoint. I don't know, like I feel like that's a really relatable thing. I feel like a lot of people have kind of been in that place where you're, you know, you see those posts that talks about like, you know, what's the worst part? The worst part isn't that you wasted so much time, but it was that you could have gotten yourself out of that dark spot way sooner. Like, had you decided, you could have gotten yourself out of that dark spot.
Yeah.
But when you're stuck in it, it feels like it's the only way, and you're not necessarily going to get out. So
a lot of guys have this too. It's called imposter syndrome.
Imposter? Okay.
It's imposter syndrome. So it's like, and it doesn't matter. It's almost an irrational fear. Like, especially like the higher up you go with elite groups of people, the more that becomes a thing.
What is it?
Huh?
What is it?
Well, it's the idea that everybody around you is like the real deal, but you got there basically by mistake or because somebody overlooked something. Like you don't feel as good as everybody else around you. Basically, is
Really?
Yeah, that's imposter syndrome. So it's like, and I've seen it among, you know, like, yo, dude, like, you're a bad you're a bad man, and like in unguarded moments, dudes, it's just that ranging insecurity that happens when you're comparing yourself to other people. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, and the crazy thing is, most people would have more grace for somebody than they would for themselves.
Yep.
So like, if the person were to say, I'm not a good operator because I missed this, you know, whatever, you'd be like, oh no, man. I mean, everybody, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
But it's a real thing among people that are highly accomplished where they feel the imposter syndrome. So on the one hand, externally he can be have a horrible attitude because he's a rock star, right? So, you know, your caustic dismissal of people, and then it talks about your behavior is the reason there is no savior, which we'll talk about in a second. But like, externally, when you see these loud, belligerent people who are just, you know, crazy and act like they don't really care, in reality, a lot of those people are massively insecure inside. So externally, he's got this kind of caustic, I don't give a fuck attitude. Internally, he feels like he's a failure. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, and it's interesting because a lot of the things that you get celebrated for as a rock star are things that at the same time people can't stand.
Yeah.
So like the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Well, that's great. Everybody celebrates the sex, drugs, and rock and roll except your girl. If you're married, your girl doesn't like the sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle.
No.
Nobody likes the drug rock style if you're one of these belligerent drunks or a belligerent...
I was gonna say, if you're on the tour bus with one of them.
If you're a belligerent drunk, or you're when you do your lines or whatever, you're like intolerably... So like, it's this weird thing with a rock star where and that how you see this a lot in the military too. Like, the thing that you get celebrated for is the thing that also makes you feel like a terrible person. So it's like, oh, look how committed this person is. They're doing back-to-back deployments, blah, 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 blah. And, oh, this person's always, you know, volunteering, and, you know, whatever. But then when you go home, it's like you're never home. So it's like the thing you're getting celebrated for is also, and it's like a major thing about like playing through pain or operating through injury. It's like, oh, wow, this guy did this on I've done it, you know. I'm like, oh, this guy did this he ran X amount of miles on a broken tibia, blah, 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 which is impossible. But, like you like that gets celebrated, but at the same time, like now you've got people that are permanently like crippled. Yeah. Like I know so many dudes like back issues out the ridiculous. Ridiculous. Your body was not constructed to carry 75 miles or 75 pounds for 40 miles.
Right.
Like that's great. You're a super soldier, but you're gonna pay for that, and all the prep that goes into accomplishing that. Like you're gonna pay for all that shit.
Yeah. No, it's true. Your body will fight you back.
So like you get like it's a very very difficult. It's a very difficult thing for a lot of dudes to be able to figure, and women go through it too. It's like, oh, you'll get all this attention if you dress a certain way, but then if you dress a certain way, now you're a slut, now you're a whore. So like a lot of us like are trying to parse out like the thing that you get celebrated for is also the thing that makes you feel the worst about yourself. So how do you reconcile that to being the person, your idealized self, the person that you want to be? How can you be a good parent if you're doing all these tours as a rock star? I remember one time, like, Jonathan was talking about his dad, because his dad was a musician too. Jonathan from Korn.
Really?
His dad was a traveling musician, and so there's a lot of times when his dad would leave him, and he would say that he, that hurt him a lot.
Yeah.
It was one of the situations that put him in a position for the Daddy song to be true in the first place, because his dad was out so much. And then he goes, I'm doing shit 50 times worse than my dad. You see what I'm saying? Like, so how do you like reconcile yourself to yourself when the things that you get celebrated for are also the things that the people closest to you are saying that's hurting? You know what I'm saying? Like that's a hard balance to strike. So that's why he says, let's face it, there's a side of you that knows you're a failure, lives for the danger, yada yada yada. And that to me is like the thing is to be able to say, to not essentialize yourself. In other words, there's a difference between saying you failed here versus you're a failure.
Oh yeah.
That's not the same thing. But what happens especially when these dialogues, because these dialogues are so.
Yeah, but it's both. You have to have both sides of it. Like, one is you're saying, okay, you failed. That doesn't make you are not a failure. But I think that already, especially people in that situation, the thing that they were most celebrated for made it so they felt important because of that thing. So their value was wrapped up in it on the positive side. So if it flips or when it flips, then you're also going to be wrapped up in the failure of the thing. Like, human beings are more than what we accomplish. We're more than, who our family is and, what.
No.
Go ahead.
No, I agree. And that's the thing. You're saying that because you're assuming certain aspects of your worldview. So you believe that human beings are more than what we accomplish, et cetera, but there's a whole bunch of, there's 2,000 years of a worldview underneath that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So if you're starting at 35 or 40 or 50 and you're trying to look at reality and all of the human experience through the lens of your 35 years, then you're gonna have these traps that you fall into. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the human family since the inception and say, okay, we've learned a couple things here, and those templates for how to navigate these types of crises are built into most major religions or / philosophies. Now, obviously, from our vantage point, we believe that our religio-philosophical groundwork is the ultimate and answers everything, which a lot of this music is kind of a testing ground for that. Like, let me throw this idea.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting, yeah.
Like, for example, he says, the bell's been rung on the Titans, haha. Everybody give us some room. Your so-called set of fake morals, I can't tell the difference. Is that an excuse? The matter at hand is a matter of time. A sad little kid with broken toys. Your dogmatic license has kept you inside. What will you do when you're burning alive? That, to me, seems like his justification for breaking his own moral code is the hypocrisy of people outside of him. So, everybody, I can't tell the your so-called set of fake morals.
Yeah.
I can't tell the difference. But then the question comes: is that an excuse, though?
Oh, right. Yeah.
See that?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. Even if you could prove that every religious person on the planet is a hypocrite, that still doesn't justify you.
Mm-hmm.
It just means, in a
Everybody's a
room of
hypocrite.
10 people, instead of one bad person in the room, namely you, there are 10 bad people in the room. That doesn't unbadify you to point at somebody else and say, "Oh, you're a religious hypocrite," blah 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 blah. That doesn't justify you. And so when he asks when he's like, "Is that an excuse?" The fact that you can't tell the difference, is that an excuse? That's a really interesting question to ask yourself. That's a really, really interesting question to ask yourself. What excuses your behavior? It's interesting. I don't spend a lot of time in it, but we've got there's this other forum where there's atheists and Christians. It's a debate thing or whatever, and people spend years in this forum, and they're like, "Oh, I don't believe any of this nonsense." Blah 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 blah. Motherfucker, you are spending hours and days and weeks and months and years in this forum.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's something about religion that intrigues you, and it's not obviously in the same category to you as a tooth fairy. There are tooth fairy web pages. I've never visited with one of them. There are fairy web pages where people really believe that fairies actually exist. I've never visited one, although after reading this book from Jacques Vallée, I might.
Yeah.
I might. But the point is I love the honesty here. The fact that you can go after a religious hypocrite or a philosophical hypocrite does not let you off the hook morally at all, in any way, shape, or form. You still have to face yourself. And now he says, a sad little kid with broken toys. Your dogmatic license has kept you inside. What will you do when you're burning alive? So I don't know that line right there, if it's autobiographical when he talks about a sad little kid.
That's what it felt like.
With broken toys, because now he's now he's rich. And it's he can get whatever he wants,
Yeah. Well, yeah, he can get whatever he wants, but what did you get from that line? To me, he was talking about his inner child, and that at the end of the day, that's kind of how he feels.
Yeah. Your behavior is just a reason why there is no savior. That line right there is pretty crazy.
Yeah. That's, Jesus Freak, DC Talk.
Yep.
They had this little discussion it was in the middle of a song or in the middle of two songs or something like that. I don't know. But he basically said he asked the question what's the greatest cause of atheism in the world today? And when I was a teenager, I was I have to know this answer. What is causing atheism? And then he was like,
it's a pandemic or something?
Yeah, what is happening? Yeah.
Did your kid get atheism? Call us at the law offices. Blah, blah,
I was
blah,
glad
for
it was so
church
simple
malpractice.
that DC Talk was going to fill me in, and I was
Okay,
going to
so-
be able to. Anyway, so the answer was Christians. And then they said, who profess God with their mouths but deny him by their lifestyle. This is what an unbelieving world simply finds unbelievable. Boom. And then they go on to the next.
Yeah. And
But yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I can't remember where I was going with it.
It's atheism, Corey.
Yeah, but we had just read something over here that it kind of
your behavior is the reason why there's no savior.
probably. Yeah.
So you're saying that they don't believe in a savior because of the behavior of Christians, basically. Is what you're
Well,
saying.
that's what they hits. That's what I found out when I was 15.
That was the answer.
Yeah, it's
It
just
wasn't that they were sinners suppressing the truth and unrighteousness.
No, it was Christians' fault because
Christians' fault.
Hypocrisy and all that.
Yeah.
It's on us. Well, I mean, I don't think that's I think both are true. I do think that there's lots of people that are you know what? But at the same time, okay, that was the part where I was going to go is that an excuse part? When he says fake morals, I can tell the difference. Is that an excuse? I think about hypocrisy a decent amount because it was brought up so much.
Right.
Anytime I talk to anybody, because we used to have to go, and when I was in that college I was in, we had to go invite people to like this kids program or whatever. And at first,
So when he was asking the question, that's what you made you think of the DC Talk thing.
yeah, it just made me think of that because it's like, you know, the idea of hypocrisy, and it can be like that for anything. Like, it doesn't just have to be your religion, but how many times, like, in our lives do we line up with what we actually think? Or is it so much easier to just point out the flaws in everybody else instead of realizing our own inconsistencies? So, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, and you know, the guy, he just seems to be really torn because on the one side he's talking about himself, and then the other side he's lashing out at people, and I think he knows that okay, that's not really gonna reconcile anything. It's not gonna give him any peace. To say, well, what about you? Like that never gives anybody peace. It just gives a good time to distract. But yeah. We never got to hear the bridge outro.
No, but it's a pretty. He says, and I don't mind my old dead story, and I don't want to lie to you. I know my glory will never be the same as truth, but now my only enemy is you.
Oh no, we had that. That was in there.
Okay. What?
I'm leaving you behind. He says, I'm leaving you behind.
So I liked this one. I liked the sound of it. I understand, like, the comment section seemed like it was a little split. Some people were like, didn't really like it, and then.
Yeah, see, Dustin loved the so-called set of fake morals. Can't tell the difference. Is that an excuse?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have returned.
We're back. So I liked it. Overall, I liked the song. I'm actually gonna give this one an 8.9.
This is a 9.3 for me. I was very, very surprised by how much that chorus. I was thinking it was gonna be a. Anytime somebody's in like two bands, I always feel like the second band is just going to be a knockoff of the first band. But to be honest with you, Stone Sour is a completely different band than Slipknot, in my view. And there are very few songs that can work on both sides. I think that forgot the name. There's a song that was a Slipknot song that could have been a Stone Sour song. But I don't know. These bands seem to be so, like, split from each other as far as the sound goes. So it's a 9.3 for me. I was extremely, extremely surprised. Very surprised. 9.3. We are coming right back, dear listener. More of the 7 stream. We got 7 songs from 7. How you feel about that, dear listener? Snuff. There it is, Snuff. Snuff is a Slipknot song that sounds like it could easily be a Stone Sour song. Good catch, Ian. Okay, we shall return. Vin out.
Sorry, out.
Gone.